go, but thank you so much for being here. A round of applause for Carol, please.
Thank you. It's really a privilege to be here today as an independent VR creator and filmmaker to discuss these. So I'll anchor some of my points in some concrete examples from my work. And I want to talk a little bit about these 4 issues today. One is the Western narrative framework, also known as the hero's journey. Touch on some Buddhist philosophies of the 5 wisdoms, mention some trauma therapy, and then discuss a bit about the separation from the feminine that I feel we are facing today. So I'll start with Marie Antoinette VR in the context of refashioning the hero's journey. So the hero's journey is a concept championed by legendary mythologist Joseph Campbell, and he's really popularized it into an industry standard in Hollywood. A lot of films like Star Wars follow this model very closely, and almost all character journeys are modeled on it. So usually there's a character who's called to an adventure. They find some sort of aid from a mentor, and then they go out into the world and slay dragons and demons and come home triumphant with some sort of prize. Sometimes it's a woman, sometimes it's some magic potion or solution that can help the home tribe. But as I use this model in my stories about women and misrepresented or underrepresented figures, I really didn't feel that this model resonated with their trajectories. So 2 authors have offered up alternatives. One is Maureen Murdoch, who created the heroine's journey in response. And then there's also a First Nations writer, Kim Hudson, who proposes what she calls the Virgin's Promise. And I want to highlight a little bit of the differences of these models versus the Joseph Campbell structure. So in the heroine's journey, there's usually a separation from the feminine. The character then realizes at some sort of crisis point that there is this spiritual aridity or death, and then they awaken and ascend into the goddess. There's a yearning to reconnect with the feminine, and eventually a healing of the mother-daughter split, which is either literal or metaphorical. Finally, and culminating in an integration of masculine and feminine energies. In the Virgin's Promise, the character usually grows up or is acclimated to a dependent world. They're kind of encouraged to be dependent. And there's a price to this conformity. The character eventually realizes that they no longer fit this world, and they're caught, quote, shining, which is an interesting term to describe the character finding their voice, developing their voice, and then creating, again, a new reality. So in the project Marie Antoinette, I really wanted to question some of these existing narratives that we have that have defined this vilified woman. And so you may know Marie Antoinette as that French queen who lost her head, who, was evil and said that people should eat cake when, the citizens of Paris were starving. She's also known for having purchased this exorbitant diamond necklace which bankrupted the French Navy. But what if I told you that all of these are untrue? These are fake news stories from the time that have somehow been passed on through the centuries. As we all know, misinformation is a huge problem these days. And it's just very interesting that this topic, you look back at the French Revolution and it's been with us for hundreds of years. So this demo premiered at Cannes Film Festival and highlights 3 pivotal moments in Marie Antoinette's life, moments where she wasn't quite fitting the narrative that society was forcing upon her, and where she was scapegoated for something she wasn't responsible for. And the audience is invited as a participatory witness to experience greater empathy for this controversial woman, who herself had to battle a lot of dependencies and to find her own voice, only it came a little too late. So we've been discussing, with the Palace of Versailles, how to create a tourist experience, a traveling experience in VR, either 3DOF or 6DOF interactive, to enable visitors to have a more truthful experience of her life story. And this is ongoing at the moment. The next project I want to discuss is Tale of the Tibetan Nomad, which necessitates going into a little bit of Buddhist philosophy and trauma therapy. So according to the Buddhist philosophy, the 5 wisdom energies, we develop certain habits and patterns in an attempt to maintain a secure, safe sense of self. So we solidify these patterns, and we often privilege form in that process. Form then influences feeling, perception, intention, and ultimately consciousness. Yet we're actually composed equally of all 5 of these energies, and we need to work with all of them in order to transform our experience of the world around us. This belief echoes a lot of the recent trauma therapy being developed. And here I'm citing Alexander Lowen, a bioenergeticist and psychotherapist, as well as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who's written an amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score. And in their work, they find that trauma is, in fact, also a physiological phenomenon, not just in our minds, but embedded in our bodies and cells, basically form. It's linked to form. And in our daily lingo, we're aware of this, so we use phrases like, it made my skin crawl, I was all choked up, my heart sank, to describe how our emotions are linked to our bodies. So I really feel this substantiates this Buddhist model of form leading to feeling, perception, intention, and ultimately affecting our consciousness. So in Tale of the Tibetan Nomad, what we do is we question reality and we destabilize it in order to inspire a new awareness within the audience. Nomad was a collaboration with world-renowned playwright Stan Lai, and we adapted a segment from his 8-hour epic play, A Dream Like a Dream. And the experience is about a man who encounters an alternate reality, which helps him to better appreciate his life. Many Buddhists believe that lucid dreaming, which is the ability to control your dreams, it applies to our waking reality as well. When you awaken from the sleepwalk of life, that is when you attain nirvana or enlightenment. And so in our experience, we take you into a story within a story told by a narrator. And it's one in which the dream world is crafted in 3D stereoscopy, one which is more vivid than the frame world. And by adapting the story into cinematic VR, including creating all these layers of form, we really want to inspire the audience to ponder how form influences their feeling, perceptions, and ultimately their consciousness. And without giving away too much more of the story, I'm excited to announce that actually we'll be launching on Oculus TV next week. So if you have a headset, you're welcome to check it out. It was very interesting because it was selected as part of a mental health package, and I think it's very fitting for this project. It's quite resonant during COVID, and we premiered it last year at the Tribeca Film Festival, right at the start of the lockdown. So it's a fitting end distribution for it. So here are some first images from, this is another image from the yurt of Tibetan Nomad. So here's some first images from Ganga. It's a project we shot the week before lockdown in India, and we'll be releasing soon. We worked with a nonprofit empowering some female waste pickers from the lowest caste of Indian society to collect plastic waste and recycle them into renewable fuels. These women are traditionally unacknowledged contributors to the economy, and we wanted to not only highlight their importance, but also link them to the holy Ganges River, also known as Ganga, the Hindu goddess representing a healing energy. And it's really symbolic, I think, that Ganga has become so polluted and forgotten in a way. In this project, we want to give voice to both the goddess and the waste picker in equal measure. And so in poetic rhyme, the goddess expresses the feminine power of this neglected life force. So only when Ganga is clean again, can she continue her healing of the earth and restore the climate. And this works on a literal and a figurative level. So throughout this VR experience, we're juxtaposing the high and the low, the interiors of slums against altars and temples. And we do this in order to emphasize that unseen yet essential feminine nature of life that is working behind the scenes to collect the waste, etc. So I want to leave us with a few thoughts. Our minds, bodies, and environments conspire to create our experience of the world. And there's been a lot of research conducted in VR that proves we can utilize the virtual environment to transfer positive consciousness into the real world. I think it's really important that we critically re-examine the existing paradigms and systems we have in place. And in VR, we can test new experiences, new systems, and ways of understanding, which we can then carry out into the real world and materialize. I really believe that immersive media can expand us into new realities. Thank you.